Alright guys, so in this video we're checking out the RunCam Phoenix 2. This camera's been out for a little while. This is a replacement for the original RunCam Phoenix. That one had some issues with low light handling, not very good in low light. I don't think they even make the camera anymore. I think they just continue it. This is the updated one. It has a bigger sensor now. It's a half-inch sensor instead of a 1/3 inch sensor. And it's got an M12 lens here, 2.1 millimeter lens, 155 degree field of view. In addition to the half-inch sensor, it does have an f2.0 aperture, so a much wider aperture than previous, so that's also why it has pretty good low light imaging, and you'll see some samples. I'll link them in the description. I basically have sample footage for sunny, cloudy, and nighttime, and you'll see that the video quality is pretty good out of this camera. So this camera is actually, I think in my opinion, not necessarily the replacement for the first Phoenix, but it's actually a replacement for the Micro Eagle. So if you guys are someone who's been flying the Micro Eagle, which also has a half-inch sensor, and I think a similar lens with a wide aperture, this one here is going to be pretty close to the Micro Eagle. In fact, I would consider this to be a upgrade to the Micro Eagle. So has much less digital shimmer than the Micro Eagle did. The image is not as muddied and sort of like difficult to describe, but basically the colors didn't look very natural at all. This sensor has a much better color reproduction. The image looks really natural. It almost looks like a GoPro image, especially in good lighting conditions. So if that's something you're looking for, and a lot less digital shimmering that the Eagle had, this is definitely an upgrade. And the price is much better than the Eagle was. I think the Eagle was around 45. This is around 30. So they've reduced the price and basically giving you, I think in my opinion, a better camera. I think the latency on this one is a little bit higher than the Micro Eagle, if I remember right. The Eagle was probably in the upper 20s to mid 20s. This one's kind of in the low 30s to mid 30s in my opinion. I didn't do any formal latency testing, but I can sense about 40 milliseconds of latency in most cameras, and this one's definitely not noticeable for me at all. But it is a CMOS sensor, so most of these are going to be a little bit higher latency than the CCD cameras. So for those of you guys that are racers, this camera is probably not going to be for you. Pretty sure that anyone that is a top racer isn't going to be able to fly on 30 milliseconds of latency. They're going to want something down in the 10 to or sub 10 numbers, less than 10 in terms of milliseconds of latency. So this camera is not really a racing camera. Alright, so this is what the camera weighs. It's about 8.5 grams. Okay, so we're going to take a quick look at the image here on the PowerPlay DVR. Now, this camera does seem to be a little bit more sensitive to electrical noise. So I have on here a pretty old 5-volt regulator on here, and I mean it's not terrible, but you can see that there's some lines in the video that in the scanning it's kind of faint, not really easy to see, but it's there. There's a little bit of noise in the recording, so you're going to want to have this on a regulator that has an LC filter, or a something that maybe like a 9-volt regulator would be actually pretty good. The voltage range on this is 5 to 36 volts, so a 9-volt regulator would probably be perfect. Yeah, then something with an LC filter, because this one does seem to be a little bit more sensitive to noise. If that's something that bothers you, then you're going to probably notice that. I didn't really notice it until I actually looked at the DVR recordings from this PowerPlay DVR, and you can kind of see a little bit here in the scan lines. I see the little scan line going up like that. So it's kind of noticeable. I think this particular 5-volt regulator has a bit of noise. I'm probably going to have to replace that. Anyway, so let's take a look at the settings. This is a PAL and NTSC switchable camera, as well as 4.3 and 16.9 switchable, which is right here. As you can see, it's currently in 16.9 mode, and the sensor is actually a 4.3 sensor. So if we switch it to 4.3, and let's go ahead and set to save and reboot the camera, you can see that when it goes from 4.3 or 16.9 mode to 4.3 mode, Basically, because it's a 4:3 sensor, to get to 16:9 mode, it cuts the top and the bottom off. It just crops it off. So here we are in 4:3 mode, and you can see here the field of view. This is where the bottom of the table here, and you can see the lights at the top. And then when I switch this back to 16:9 mode, that those will be basically chopped off, and you get a reduced field of view in the vertical dimension, but in the horizontal dimension it's going to be the same. So you can see here that the lights there are no longer visible, but if I bring those into view, then you can see the desk is no longer visible. And now you can see the scan lines here with the pointing at the light. That's the electrical noise from the voltage regulator. And then over here, also in the video settings, you can change it from NTSC and PAL as well. Anyway, so for me personally, I think that the image quality of this camera is probably one of the better RunCam cameras out there currently. If you're looking for a CMOS style camera, it's got a really big half-inch sensor, a big aperture lens, it's got good low light handling, and really good natural looking pictures. So those are the kind of things I look for, you know, if you're looking for like things like latency and higher contrast, that kind of things, you know, this may not be the best camera for you. So I would encourage you to watch all the video footage and see if that's the kind of image you're looking for from your FPV feed. So at the end of this video is going to be my standard park flight. It's kind of a partly cloudy day that day that I flew this on, so you get an idea what it looks like going into the trees and up and above the trees and etc. like that. It's like my standard flight. You can compare this to some of the other cameras out there as well. And then I'll link in the description 3 sample videos recorded on this DVR here, which will be in 60 frames per second directly from the camera like this. And this is basically, you know, just some footage from outside my house in basically sunny, bright sunny conditions, no clouds, like a cloudy day and a sort of like late afternoon, early evening, kind of basically after the sun went down. So those are the 3 that'll be linked down in the description. You can kind of compare and see what you think of the particular image quality of this camera in those different situations. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Here's flight footage, and then there's other video clips are going to be down in the description. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you guys in the next